Veera, Veera, Janapriya, Nirma, Udita, Sri Chaitanya, Kripa Bharau, Bhubi Bhuba. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Pranam, glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to you, Prabhu. We're very happy to have your divine grace on our platform.
Thank you.
Our devotees will come as we continue, Prabhu. Please, sometime devotee they come late like this. Plus, please don't mind us. Please forgive us for for coming late. But surely they will come. More devotee will join as time goes on.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Yes,
it's what time is it there? 10 a.m.?
It's 11 a.m. in Nigeria and 10 a.m. in Ghana.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
Well, Happy to be with you. So should I begin?
Yes, please, sir. Please, Prabhu.
Okay, let me see. Magina Tamarandasya, Gananjana Salakaya, Chakshulan Militam Jaina Tasmai, Shri Gurave Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Svaya Upakada Mayam Dadati Sva Patandikam, Panchakopa Turubhischa, Kripa Sindhubi Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivastri Gaur Bhaktavinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, we'll continue today. You always pick very nice shlokas here. Today we're back in Srimad Bhagavatam. Before I start, you know that kirtan you just had with Srila Prabhupada chanting Jayarada Madhava, that's in the New Dwarka Temple, Los Angeles, in what we called the New Temple. There was old temple room, then it became New Temple Room 1974. So that was in the New Temple Room. And Los Angeles, Prabhupada spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. It was, of course, it was our world headquarters, 1970s, in the early 1970s, before Prabhupada started spending more time in India. Do you need to translate?
No, everybody's here understand English, Prabhu.
Okay, and what else? Okay, we don't need to translate. Okay, that's very good. So, yes, anyway, I just wanted to say that. And I'm, of course, here in Vrindavan. It's 3:30 in the afternoon here. And as I told Mataji, which I'm sure it's okay, I'll speak for, if it's okay with you, for about an hour, give or take a few minutes, and then we can leave some time for questions. But I will
Yes, Prabhu. We will love that. And also we would love to hear some personal Srila Prabhupada pastime from you.
That's all you're going to get. I don't know anything else. I don't know. You give me a verse, so we're going to cover the verse in purport, but because you give it to me. Otherwise, I'm very happy just doing Prabhupada pastimes. But this is also nice because this speaks about the pure devotee. We know Prabhupada is pure devotee. So we say, sometimes when I give class, I say that they say, do you want a verse? I say, it's up to you. You want to do the verse, today's verse, you do today's verse. But Prabhupada, he's person Bhagavat. He's a person Bhagavatam. So talking about Prabhupada is also Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not like it's something different. That was what I try to express very often. You can hear me all right? That's what I wanted to ask.
We are hearing you very clearly, Prabhu, please. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, clearly, very clearly.
Okay. So I wanted to, make sure when I give class, I try to express that, how actually everything about Srila Prabhupada is coming through his spiritual master and also coming through Shastra. Which he says, of course, many, many times, he never invented anything, Prabhupada. He's giving us the same knowledge that's been coming down from Vyasadeva, coming down from Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. So this is Prabhupada's potency. Huh? And this is why we have Krishna consciousness all over the world, because we say, what is it? Purity is the force, huh? Preaching is the essence, but purity, without the purity, then there really nothing much will happen. So today, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 7, text 3 and 4. Here in Vrindavan, we're doing 10th canto, chapter 4 now. I think we just changed to chapter 4, all about the birth of Lord Krishna, Mother Devaki, Mother Yasoda, like that. So here we have text 3. Pasmin spa ashrame vyaso badari sandamandite asino pa upaprisya pranidaya manasvayam. We'll go to the translation. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashram, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Srila Prabhupada's purport, under instructions of his spiritual master, Srila Narada Muni, Vyasadeva concentrated his mind in that transcendental place of meditation. Srila Narada Muni also, there were almost maybe half a dozen times while Prabhupada was here that he mentioned Narada Muni had come. He'd come to the temple, had come and attended kirtans. Once he stopped after class, he was headed back. This was in London. He was headed back to his room after class, and he stopped before the deities, where this was in New York. And he stood there for maybe 2 minutes, just looking. And afterwards he would say, these were in the late 60s, sometimes in the late 60s, Prabhupada, anyway, he would say to his disciples, they said, what happened? And he said, well, didn't you see? Of course, we didn't see. We only saw a material body. But Prabhupada, he could see other things. He could see that subtle forms, transcendental forms, spiritual bodies. So he said, Narada Muni came. So this society, as Prabhupada was establishing his society, it was being heard about all over the universe, all over material, spiritual world, that this Krishna consciousness movement was being spread by Srila Prabhupada. And he said, yeah, Narada Muni came and he said he wanted to see the Malechas chanting Hare Krishna. So this was Prabhupada, and there were other kirtans in San Francisco, Narada Muni. We know Narada Muni, we call him the traveling transcendental spaceman, because he can travel here and there at his will. So he also did that in San Francisco. He appeared in Vrindavan when Prabhupada was doing one of the very first jagyas, making Harinam initiates, giving Gayatri mantra, making sannyasis, right at Radha Damodar temple. And after that program, he also said Narada Muni had come. And so Narada Muni, he was very wonderful. He, of course, we know he instigates many things. He also instigated Kamsa in killing the other children of Devaki, but he's doing his business as well. So he was very happy, Prabhupada said, to see this chanting going on. So that's our Narada Muni. So that's verse 3. Then we have verse 4. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male apasyat purusham purnam mayam cha tad apasrayam. Synonyms: bhakti, of course, devotional service; yogena, by the process of linking up. Yoga literally means to link up. Also, if you know religion, if you go to the meaning, Latin word religion, religio, the meaning of religion means to bind back. So yoga, religion, same thing, means to connect, to link up. Manasi, upon the mind. Samyak, perfectly. Pranihite, engaged in and fixed upon. Amale, without any matter. Apasyat, saw. Purusham, the personality of Godhead. Purnam, absolute. Mayam, energy. Cha, also. Tat, his. Apasrayam, under full control. Translation: thus he fixed his mind perfectly, engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Purport. Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth, personality of Godhead, only by the process of devotional service. And one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Imperfect realization of the absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. Sri Narada advised Srila Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. Srila Vyasadeva did not take notice of the effulgence of Brahman because that is not absolute vision. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 19, Vasudeva Saramiti. In the Upanishads also, it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayena Patrena, veil of impersonal Brahman. And when that curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purusha or person. The absolute personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures and in the Bhagavad Gita. The Purusha is confirmed as the eternal and original person. The absolute personality of Godhead is the perfect person. The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from the statements of her activities. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apasrayam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy, also called Maya, but it is spiritual Maya, or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. So here he's, of course, Prabhupada's talking about Maya. How the living entity, we're always in Maya. We're in Mahamaya or we're covered by Yoga Maya. But Maya is always there. So Prabhupada's speaking about these two energies, Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. And even those who are Atmarama, or fixed in trance, take shelter of this Maya, or internal energy. Devotional service or bhakti yoga is the function of the internal energy. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy. Or material energy, just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. Such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman effulgence is also an emanation from the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The Parama Purusha cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in the later shlokas. Okay. Is that clear? So I may have mentioned, I'm not sure, I give different classes to different places. Is one of the very first things, I used to talk Srila Prabhupada stories. one of the very first things when I saw Srila Prabhupada, it was in his garden in Los Angeles, where he gave that bhajan today. Huh? So did I speak about Prabhupada in the garden, in his garden in LA?
Yes, please, Prabhu, please. We are eager to hear. Anxious to hear.
So I'm actually approaching very, very soon. I'm kind of excited this year. A little bit excitement for me. On this April will be 50 years since I moved into a temple. This coming April, 1971. I met the Hare Krishna devotees in Earth Day. We have Earth Day, and I don't know if they observe Earth Day that part of the world, but in the West, April 22nd is Earth Day. That was the original Green Day. So I went to a festival that day, literally a concert in a park with a friend, and that's the first time I saw devotees. These funny people with shaved heads, wearing bed sheets and tilak on their foreheads, paint on their foreheads. So that was 50 years ago. I was 19 years old, and then this summer, July, will be first initiation. That'll also be 50 years ago. So somehow or other, Prabhupada has kept me around for 50 years now, and sometimes near a temple, sometimes in a temple, sometimes away from a temple. But this is how life goes. You'll see as you progress in life, there are many different avenues that are there. And one time I was with Prabhupada. I was just 20 years old. I had been with him for 8 months. And as a brahmachari, so-called brahmachari, in the temple for just 1-2 years, there was brahmachari. And I walked into his room. So the program with Prabhupada, we're describing this, of course, in the purport. This is Bhakti Yoga. Prabhupada, when he saw in the USA, he saw this one sign, It said unalloyed steel. Unalloyed means no other alloy. We know when you make something with steel, or just like even some of the things we use in devotional service, like we have the bells and things we ring, it's called bell metal, which means there's 8 metals in there. So that has alloys. It's not pure. It's not just brass. It's brass with this and this and this and this. So when Prabhupada saw that, he liked that very much, that word unalloyed. Unalloyed devotional service means it's not contaminated with anything else. The desire just to serve Krishna. So my good fortune, of course, was I got to see that person day after day for years. I got to see Prabhupada and what it meant to be pure devotee, to have no other inclination to do anything, just wanted to serve. We read these purports today, you can get an idea of the intensity of Prabhupada's love for Krishna. We say addicted. In the material world, we're all addicted. We talk about person having drug addiction, alcohol addiction, this sex addictions, but everybody's addicted somehow or other in this world. But for the devotee, our aim, of course, is to become addicted to Krishna. So Prabhupada explains, in order to love someone, you have to know about them. So therefore, he gives us all these different scriptures to understand Krishna, to understand a little bit about Krishna. So as a brahmachari, there was a time every day, of course, I cooked lunch for Prabhupada. And I was usually very close. Like I say, and Prabhupada would ring the bell. When you were his personal servant, you had to be very close, because Prabhupada, he just rang a bell. And it was not a buzzer course, it wasn't a phone. He didn't text you, nothing like that. It was a little handbell. So you literally had to be within earshot of a bell ringing. So even when I was cooking, my kitchen area was very close to where Prabhupada was. So I would give him massage. Massage was rub his head, sandalwood oil, and the rest of his body would rub with mustard oil. You've probably seen some pictures, Prabhupada taking massage. Huh? He would sit on the floor, cross-legged, or his legs would be straight out, with gamcha on. And the servant, he also wore a gamcha. And massage would go like hour and a half. And after massage, anyway, it was very tricky time. While you're giving him massage, the cooker is in the kitchen. Prabhupada had his cooker. Hopefully you've also seen pictures of Prabhupada's cooker. So he trained me up how to use this cooker, how to, sometimes he called it sannyasi cooker, because it was very simple. You would cook whole meal. He would say 45 minutes, whole meal is done. But the trick was, all the vegetables, the rice, and the dal were inside that cooker while you were giving him massage. So you had to be very, very careful how you put the flame so that you didn't ruin everything in there and everything would be cooked. Because the massage didn't have a certain amount of time. It was all according to Prabhupada's desire. This was the other thing. When you were with Prabhupada, you did everything according to his desire. See, this is what it means. This is what it means for devotee. Pure devotional service means we understand what's Krishna's desire. And in our stage, in neophyte stage, we have to understand what it is the spiritual master's desire. And the more we focus on just trying to serve that desire, then of course, the more progress we can make. So being with Prabhupada was a very intense realization of what it meant to be surrendered 24 hours a day, because you would be there. He literally told me, I'll tell you one story, also this Los Angeles temple. Many things happened in Los Angeles temple. Well, first I'll tell this other story. So after massage, Prabhupada would go bathe. And then he would come back, he would dress, you would put all his clothes on the bed, you would lay out his kopin, lay out dhoti, lay out kurta, everything, just like a butler, pujari. Personal servant meant you're a pujari, but your deity, he's living, moving around. He doesn't just stand on the altar. He's moving everywhere. He's doing what he likes, but basically you're like a pujari. So after the massage, I would run into the kitchen and I would have to complete the meal, which means making vegetables, chancing the vegetables, chancing the dal, rolling out chapatis, making one chapati. And while you're doing that, Prabhupada is taking his bath. He took bath from a bucket, not a shower, didn't use a shower, didn't sit in the bathtub full of dirty water. He bucket bath. And he would do that. Then he would come into the bedroom and he would get his clothes that you put out. He would dress, then he would sit behind his desk and he would put tilak, mark his whole body with tilak, and then he would say Gayatri. So from the time of the massage, you had maybe 15 minutes to complete his meal, put everything on the plate, make a chapati, see that the chapati puffs up. You put one chapati on the plate and you would run into the room. And as you got into the room with the plate, Prabhupada would be behind his desk. He would just be finishing his Gayatri mantra and he's ready to take lunch. So everything was boom, 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 just like doing arti, clockwork. So that's what it was to be Prabhupada's servant. So then you'd bring the plate in, Prabhupada would get up. The table on the floor, just we call choki. Hindi, they say choki, just a small table, like a little TV table that was sitting on the floor, facing the wall. Prabhupada would face the wall. sit on a straw mat, and just by himself, he would go sit down, you would put the plate down, you offer obeisances, and you run out of the room. You run out of the room because you have to make another chapati. You only gave him one chapati. So you bring him hot chapatis. You got that, Saraswati? Hot chapati. And every chapati has to puff up. If it doesn't puff up, it's no good. Like a frisbee, you just throw it away. So you go back, you make a chapati, it puffs up, you put a little ghee on the top, and it's still puffed up. And you run back into the room with one chapati on the plate. You slide it in the Prabhupada's plate. Again, you offer obeisances and you run back out of the room. So you might do that 5, 6 times, making chapatis. 1 chapati, 2 chapati, 3 chapati, 4. Every time you come back in the room, you offer obeisances to your spiritual master. Every time. I said, now like my knees are not so good. I said, I offered obeisances many, many times in the course of 2.5 years. Maybe in a day, sometimes 50 times. Every time you will go into Prabhupada's room, offer obeisances. He never said, you've done it enough today. You don't have to offer any more obeisances. No, this was the process. This is the process of learning how to become humble before great souls. So I'd always do it. So one day, I'm brahmachari, young boy, 20 years old. And anyway, I walk in, I put the plate down, I go out, I come back, I bring a chapati, put it on his plate, and I offer obeisances. And as I'm offering obeisances, he says to me, being a brahmachari is an austerity. Being a grahasta, he said, is an austerity. He said, you just have to decide which austerity you want to perform. And that's all he said, the whole meal. So this was to be with Prabhupada. You would get these little tidbits of information. He didn't overload me, his servant, with so much information. And he would say it in such a way that most of the time I didn't understand. He was actually telling me what I should be doing. He was giving me instructions, but he knew my heart. He knew my nature. So he would always talk in this very general way, like he was just saying something. It was many, many years later that I realized he was always telling me what I should do, what I shouldn't do. But I wasn't able to get it at that time. So that was the one day, just literally 30-second instruction. So the next day comes, 24 hours go by, give him massage, doing the cooking, he's bathing, putting on tilak, saying Gayatri mantra. And I put his lunch down, I go out, get another chapati, I come in with a chapati. And I put the chapati down and I'm offering obeisances. And while I'm offering obeisances, he said, it is easier to manage ISKCON than it was to manage my family life. So this was 2 instructions over 2 days, over not even 1 minute of instructions. But if you put those 2 things together, he was trying to tell me, you just do your service, forget all these other things, because he knew soon approaching, I also was going to get married, which anyway, that's another story. But this was Prabhupada always, whatever he did, there was always some lesson in there. There was always an instruction, even in the most simple thing he would say. And he would say things that were very simple. So also while I was in New Dwarka, he told me what it was to be servant, what it was to be 24 hours a day engaged in service. See, this is what it's talking about. You want to see Krishna, he's not cheap. Krishna, he's very expensive. You got to give up everything to have Krishna. He's got to be your only desire. To see, to have the vision, to have the association, the darshan of the Supreme Personality. You got to want to do nothing but serve Krishna. So this is what I saw with Prabhupada. And even we were so young, Prabhupada he did instill that in us. If you see Prabhupada disciples, you'll see many times they're on a they have very special idea of what it means to do service. There's no let up in service. There's no getting to a plateau and think, okay, now I can relax. Huh? We didn't learn relaxing when we were young in Krishna consciousness, when we were in the temple. We learned from the time you got up to the time we took rest, we were doing service. So anyway, we're there in Los Angeles. Prabhupada stayed there for 2 months. And during those 2 months, I got to know different devotees because I was always traveling with Prabhupada. So I didn't get much association with others. I didn't get friends or things. But in Los Angeles, I actually became a few male friends over the course of time. Sometimes they would come, outside Prabhupada's, outside the room by the servants' quarters. They would talk, they would help me do things, get things for Prabhupada. And they kept saying to me, see, I was never told, but I instinctively had an idea. I never went to Mangal Artik when I was Prabhupada's servant because you had to be there. If Prabhupada would ring the bell, that was your business. The servant answered the bell. Nobody, secretary didn't answer the bell. Many times now, I give classes. It happens all the time. They say Srutakirti, he was Prabhupada's secretary for over 2 years, and I always say no, it was not his secretary. I was servant, personal servant. Huh? In this world, no one likes to be called servant. We can see more and more. It's not politically correct. Call anyone a servant. Now you have personal assistants and you have this, you have that, but servant, not so nice. Secretary, people can be secretary. So many times they'll introduce me as secretary and I'll say, no, I was servant. So as servant, I had specific duties: cooking, massage. Wherever Prabhupada went, you were like his shadow. If he was sitting in the car, you sat next to him. If he was on the airplane, you sat next to him. On the morning walk, you walked next to him. You would hold the microphone like that, record everything he said. So this was our business. So I always understood that. But these friends of mine, they kept saying, why don't you come to Mangal Artik sometime? So nice, Mangal Artik in the temple. They have wonderful kirtan leaders at that time. Some of the artists, Parikit and Bardraj. If you ever heard Bardraj kirtans from the 70s, or this person leading this person. When Prabhupada was at a temple, of course, devotees came from all around, hours and hours away. They would drive to be there. So there were always hundreds of devotees at any temple where Prabhupada was. So anyway, after trying to convince me for days and saying, does Prabhupada ever ring the bell 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning? And I'd say, no. I said, but, he might. So they said, well, you come to Mangal Artik. So finally, one morning I agreed. I said, okay, I'll come to Mangal Artik. It was literally just from Prabhupada's room. He was on 2nd floor, just go down the stairs. And through the back door of the temple room, you were right in front of Rukmini Dwarkadish, the deities, Jagannath deities, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Gaur-Nitai. This was 1973. So I agreed one morning. I was always up, but I would just sit there and chant rounds. So I go into the temple room, and wonderful, Mangal Artik, and Prabhupada's there in the temple. Not in the temple room. He's in his own. He also didn't go to Mangal Artik. That was his translating time. And this is when Prabhupada was very often translating his books, was 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I go to the kirtan, Mangal Artik kirtan's going on. And I'm in the temple room for about 10 minutes. And all of a sudden I'm there and I'm chanting. You know, we were young, we chanted and danced. We liked to dance, liked to chant. And I get tap on the shoulder. It's my godbrother, Prajumna. Prajumna was Sanskrit editor. So he taps me on the shoulder. I turn around. He said, Prabhupada wants to see you and he's really mad. This was also something that happened, I wouldn't say very often, but frequently when you were in Prabhupada. You know, Prabhupada's party was like a little temple. It was a traveling temple. You had Prabhupada, his servant, his secretary, Sanskrit editor. Sometimes gradually people would take the train or whatever, transcribers. So there were different people that would be there. So this thing happened where Prabhupada wants to see you. If Prabhupada wanted to see you, it generally was not a good thing. It meant you were going to get chastised. So when someone said Prabhupada wants to see you, you just, and especially if they were saying he's really mad. So of course I immediately left the temple room, ran upstairs to Prabhupada's room, and I'm offering my obeisances in front of Prabhupada's room. And as I'm offering obeisances, he's already yelling at me. And he said, where were you? He said, I've been ringing this bell for hours. And Prabhupada sometimes liked to exaggerate times. Sometimes he would say years. He said, I've been ringing this bell for hours. Where were you? And I sat up. Of course, whenever Prabhupada chastised you and raised his voice, you'd become very, very upset. I was not very good at being chastised. I didn't like being chastised at all. And I said, Prabhupada, I went to Mongol Artik, and he looked at me. He said, you have no business going to Mongol Artik. He said, your business is to be in your room 24 hours a day. He said, what if I need something? He said, you have to be there. So I was the only person in all of ISKCON, all around the world. I was in Maya because I went to Mongol Artik. Imagine. I say, all of you, you don't go to Mongol Artik and you're in Maya. That's because we're supposed to go to Mongol Artik. But I was not allowed to go to Mongol Artik. It was the only day I went to Mongol Artik when I was Prabhupada's servant. And I was in Maya. And it was the only day he ever called me at that time of the morning because he knew I wasn't there. He didn't say he needed anything. He just wanted to let me know. He said, that's your business. You be in your room 24/7. So this is what it means to be engaged in pure devotional service, nothing else, no other consideration for your own pleasure, not even going to a kirtan. If that's not your service, that's also Maya. Our business is we just want to please Krishna. We just want to please, and in our state, we just try to follow the orders of the spiritual master. So these orders, of course, they can change this way, that way. But for me, it was very clear. And this was, of course, very beneficial to be with Prabhupada and to see. Just like he was always engaged in Krishna's service. I say Prabhupada had books, his books, wherever we traveled. Prabhupada, he went around the world 14 times. One reporter said, you know, Swamiji, why did you go around the world 14 times? And he said, huh? So why did you go around the world 14 times? He says, so you wouldn't have to travel through the 14 planetary systems. So like it says in this verse, our business is nothing else, no detours. When the spirit soul leaves this body, we don't want to be detoured by the heavenly planets. We don't want to be detoured by the Brahma Jyoti, the blissful, bliss is there. We don't want to be detoured even by Vaikuntha planets. Our business is we want to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is what Prabhupada very kindly gave to us, this opportunity to go right from this lifetime to where Krishna, Prabhupada said, where Krishna is performing his pastimes in the material universe. And there one can take birth in their transcendental body and learn the process of devotional service to Krishna. So, again, you said to be with Prabhupada was the most wonderful thing. But the most wonderful thing, it requires lots of determination and lots of focus. We can't become diverted in different things. But he showed us, Prabhupada, he encouraged us. When he was here back in the 70s, Prabhupada actually, he made us think we could become Krishna conscious in this very lifetime. He always spoke like that. He didn't speak to us like it was something that was going to take hundreds of lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes, millions of lifetimes. In fact, he said even in a moment, we could become Krishna conscious. And in a moment, he said, one can surrender to Krishna. And he convinced us of that when he was here. Again, this is the power of pure devotee. And this is why association is very, very important. Because depending on who we associate with, we can either become very, very encouraged or discouraged, distracted by other things. But Prabhupada gave us this, he gave us, I'm playing with the computer, he gave us this understanding that Krishna consciousness was not something difficult. We know it's the very nature of the spirit soul. That's why, of course, his magazine, we say back to Godhead. Prabhupada said it's already there. It's just covered over at this time. So let me think, where else can we go from here? So here we see, like in Vrindavan here, same thing. Prabhupada describes Vrindavan. Very special place. He says, but he advises even his devotees. He said, you come stay some time in Vrindavan, then you go back for preaching activities. We know Prabhupada's society, he trained up preachers. He wanted us to give Krishna to others. By giving Krishna to others, of course, we would get Krishna. And then he said in Vrindavan, he said, whatever you do, he said, is magnified 100 times. He said, so if you give 1%, you do 1% service in Vrindavan, he said, it becomes 100%. He said, but also if you're engaged in material activities, that also is magnified 100 times. So our business is, Prabhupada wanted us to become very serious. Whatever he did, just like in speaking to me, I described how he would speak to me as his servant. And Prabhupada engaged everyone equally in devotional service. I was, half the time I was with Prabhupada as a servant, I was a Grahasta. His secretary was a Grahasta. His Sanskrit editor, 2, 3 different ones, they were all Grahastas. Prabhupada didn't make distinctions. Everyone was simply to engage in Krishna consciousness. We know, he said being brahmachari, he said, very nice. But he wrote one of his Grahasta disciples, he said, but if you can remain pure with a very nice wife, beautiful wife, he said, you're more than sannyasi. So he had a way of making everyone feel appreciated. He made everyone feel special. There was one time, it was many years ago, maybe over 20 years ago, just like I'm speaking to you here. I've done these classes many, many times, speaking about Srila Prabhupada. So it was in New York City, his very first temple, 26 Second Avenue. And we were having a Prabhupada marathon. So myself and others were speaking. And one devotee, after the end of class, asked a question. And they said, they were also a disciple of one of my godbrothers, sannyasi godbrother. So we say, in English, they say a loaded question. I mean, they were expecting a certain answer. Devotees would do that with Prabhupada as well. They would ask a question and they would expect, they would want reinforced their idea. Just like book distributor in Mayapur, one of the Mayapur festivals, one of the devotees said, Prabhupada, how can we please you the most? So very often book distributors, they would ask that question because Prabhupada many, many times in letters, conversations, he would say, book distribution is most important activity. He would say, you want to please me the best way, you distribute my books. So very essential. This is the best preaching work, giving somebody one of Prabhupada's books, because his books are Krishna. Prabhupada said, every word is Krishna. He said, if someone just touches a book, just by touching a book, holding the book, he said they make progress. He said their life will be successful just by taking a book. So very, very important. But when the devotee asked the question, Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? How can I please you the most? Prabhupada looked and he said, you develop your love of Krishna. And of course, again, this is what's most pleasing to the spiritual master. They see their disciple is advancing in Krishna consciousness. I know another devotee asked Prabhupada, he was a big GBC man, and he asked Prabhupada, how can please you the most? Prabhupada said, you struggle for Krishna. So, and one thing I learned being with Prabhupada is the way he used English. So sometimes when Prabhupada would say something was most important, it didn't mean that everything else was less important. It just meant that that was most important. He would say book distribution is most important. The deity worship is most important. Raising your children nicely in Krishna consciousness is most important. It didn't mean other things were less important. He would just emphasize how important it was, all these different qualities, all these different situations. So this devotee in New York, they said to me, did Prabhupada treat anyone special? Because they knew their spiritual master spent a lot of time personally with Srila Prabhupada. He was GBC, he was Prabhupada's secretary, and he was certainly very, very special to Prabhupada. So he said, did Prabhupada treat any of his disciples special? And it was the first time I was ever asked that question. Probably the last time I was ever asked that question. And I thought for a minute, and I said, yes, all of them. This is what the pure devotee does. He makes us all feel special because everyone, of course, is servant of Krishna. Children, Krishnas, everyone belongs to Krishna. But more importantly, devotees are very special. They're engaged in devotional service. So Prabhupada, he gave his time and his energy to everyone according to what they gave Prabhupada. If you went into Prabhupada's room, those who were fortunate enough to get darshan in Prabhupada's room, even if you were alone in the room, Prabhupada would talk. You could ask him questions. You could talk to him. He never stopped and looked at his watch and said, oh, I got to do this now. He never made you feel like you were a botheration. He made you feel special. He cared. It wasn't some marketing gimmick, because you're not giving him anything. It's not like these people were giving lots of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. They were doing service for Prabhupada, and he was supplying them with the bare necessities of life. But he cared. He genuinely cared for us. And right now in Vrindavan, I'm part of a program we're trying to establish more and more as necessity is coming of setting up Vaishnava care to give facility for particularly aging devotees, whether they're Prabhupada disciples or other. Vrindavan is a very special place. We know towards the end of life, many devotees want to come and spend their final days or years in Vrindavan, just as Prabhupada did, because it's Vrindavan. And I've been, anyway, I'm part of this program. We're just getting started. We see already so many people, they require different levels of care and everything, and we want to do that. But it's all based on the principle that literally Prabhupada gave us. It was Prabhupada himself when he started this society, your society, your ISKCON, all of you. Prabhupada's business was to take care of us, get us out of this material world. This is the greatest Vaishnava care. This is what a Vaishnava wants to do. He wants to end the suffering for everyone. So our very basis in ISKCON is devotee care. And that's why it's important for all of us, for us here in Vrindavan, for you there, whatever city, country on the continent you're on, is to care for one another, to help each other in Krishna consciousness, not to criticize, try to climb over, see someone down, think, oh, this is an opportunity for me to get ahead. No, we make advancement by helping others. What's Krishna say? One who worships me, he's not my devotee. It's one who worships the devotees. He's my devotee. He's the special one. He's the most important person. So Prabhupada, he emphasized this. He was the very personification of that. Devotees would say, Prabhupada, everyone loves you. Prabhupada said, because I love everyone. See, is what he put out. When you have love of Krishna, then you love all Krishna's parts and parcels. You're able to see Krishna everywhere. Yesterday, I went to a Pujari meeting for Krishna Balaram temple. So you can imagine there's 4, 6, 10 main deities. Then they all have the little Chota deities for Abhisheks. Then we have like 4 Govardhan Shilas on the altar. So there's like 35 pujaris engaged in the deity worship here. In the morning between Mangalarti to greeting the deities, 3 hours later, there's 35 pujaris all doing things on the altar. But at this meeting, the head pujari, he read a verse about the devotee. One who sees the devotee in the deity in the temple, worships the deity in the temple, but he ignores the Vaishnavas. He's Kanishta Adhikari. He's literally on the lowest platform. Just being attached to the deity, being very careful in our deity worship doesn't make us great devotee. It's when you see Krishna everywhere, especially in his devotees, you take care of the devotees, then one's advancing. Prabhupada didn't travel with the deities. He didn't bring Radha, Krishna, Jagannath deities with him. No, he traveled around to see all the devotees. Here in India, he built Mayapur. He was there for Mayapur, for Juhu temple, Vrindavan temple. The first thing he did was build guest houses, not temples for the deities. The first thing he did was provide guest houses so his disciples could be taken care of. So when they came, they would have proper facility. They could be healthy. This was his very big concern for Prabhupada. Here in India, I'm not sure in where you are, but here in India, even when Prabhupada was here, it was very difficult to get cow ghee. Now we'd get buffalo ghee. You would get so-called ghee with oil mixed in. Who knows what would be, India is very good at cheating propensity. So Prabhupada arranged one of his disciples, Madhvisa, in Australia. Australia, a very big dairy country. Australia comes under, British Commonwealth. The Brits like their dairy products. In England, very nice dairy products. Jersey cows, Guernsey, they're all British bred kind of cows. So Prabhupada had this devotee in Australia pay his book bill by sending ghee to India from Australia. 1,000 kilograms of ghee he sent to India from Australia so the devotees would have proper cow ghee. So this is how this is how Prabhupada thought. This is how Prabhupada took care of us. And this is why we were very, very happy and eager to serve Prabhupada, because we understood he loved us. We were special. We were serving him, and he would say the only thing he could give us in this way was whatever he could give us. He gave us the philosophy to understand Krishna, go back home, back to Godhead. But he would try to very much take care of our personal needs. Myself, he gave me so many things while I was with him. We'll save that for another time. But he gave, when I left him, after I didn't heed his instruction from the beginning, when he said it was easier managing ISKCON and managing family life. So then I was with him for 16 months, and I left him to get married. And upon my leaving, he gave me 2 rings. He gave me one for me and one for my future wife. That they were his gifts as I left to get married. And they weren't the only things he gave me over time, but at that time, so he was very, very sweet, Prabhupada, very caring, but he could chastise you. You do something, if he saw you straying, he would, why are you sleeping? If you slept in the morning, he would chastise, why are you sleeping? One morning he said to us in Vrindavan, he called me in his room, 5 a.m. He said, where are the others? The others meant Sanskrit editor, his secretary. So of course he knew where they were. They were sleeping. So I said, oh, they're resting, Prabhupada. Call them. So then that same situation, I would go into the room. Prabhupada wants to see you. So you knew it was not a happy thing. Prabhupada wants to see you. So they both, of course, woke up, tilak on. We all run back into Prabhupada's room. Why are you sleeping? And you just look at him. There's no answers to Prabhupada. You can't say anything. You give an answer, then he'll chastise you even more if you try to make excuse. So then he looked at us. He said, getting up early in the morning and taking cold bath, he said, is not an austerity. He said, it's common sense. He said, it's good for your health. And we know Ayurvedically, to rise by 4 a.m, take cold bath, it's considered very good for the body. So he said that. He said, it's not austerity. He said, it's good for your health. And he said, and if you do that, he said, if you rise early every morning, take cold bath, attend Mangalarti, chant your 16 rounds nicely, he said, after 12 years, everything you say will be perfect. And then he said, okay, now you can go. So that's what is just a little bit of what it's like to be with the pure devotee. Always trying to push us to be better devotee, get out of this material world. We see it's crazy now. I'm sure where you are, just like everywhere else in the world, everyone's struggling. People are locked up in their homes in England, in the USA. India is one of the most free places in the world right now. They talk about COVID, but everything's kind of back to normal. Our temple's open in a couple of weeks. In 2 weeks, we have Kumbh Mela in Vrindavan. Every year, it's somewhere in India. Every year there's Kumbh Mela, and every 12 years, the big Kumbh Mela festival is there in Hardwar. But this year we'll have, they call it like a mini Kumbh Mela. It'll be here in Vrindavan. There'll be thousands of people coming. Sometimes they wear masks, sometimes they don't wear masks. But here in Vrindavan, we're just under Krishna's protection. So We had a very strange year this last year, but I've been fortunate because I've been locked up in Vrindavan. I couldn't leave, so I've been very happy to be here. Still happy to be here, and now I'm hoping I can just stay here. And instead of traveling, I can just travel on the computer now, just do my classes. Somebody wrote me, God sister wrote me, she said, boy, you're going to be traveling all over the world. How are you doing that at the same time? She saw the class schedule. How are you going to be there and there and there and there? Because the class at 3 p.m. here and 10 a.m. here, 11 a.m. here, 4 in the morning here. So as long as that facility is there, we can all associate with each other. So we can open it up. Anyone has any questions about the verse or the purport or anything I've been talking about or anything else, or any comments or corrections? But it's very nice to be with you all. You all have to stick together, help each other grow in Krishna consciousness, and don't let anyone stray away. Everybody's very important. That's what I learned from Prabhupada. Everyone is important. And there's devotees, they're all very important people. Say VIPs, very important Prabhus.
Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhu. We really enjoy your time with us. We enjoy the powerful pastimes. We really appreciate it. So I don't know, maybe there's some question from the other devotees, please. You can unmute yourself. Yes, Adi Prabhu, please unmute yourself and ask Prabhu question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu. It's always to hear from Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples. And I've been listening to you a few times here and there on YouTube, especially sharing of Srila Prabhupada's memories. If I were very good educated person and a good author, I could write a very interesting book from your class this morning. Because there are so many salient points that as devotees we need to understand to help practice our devotional service. One thing I gathered from your class this morning, Prabhuji, is that sometimes we get sidetracked by what other devotees say about us without paying attention to what the Guru has instructed us to do and what pleases the Guru. Like, you were always with Srila Prabhupada, that was your service. But other devotees were saying, why don't you attend to Mangarati? You attended Mangarati and you found yourself in trouble. So,
Yeah.
But my question is, I am like a worm, and I am happy being a worm in ISKCON. But I am thinking that it will be very beneficial that ISKCON as an organization, as a body, would institute that every temple, every temple, when you recruiting new devotees, the first thing for every temple to do is to start by training the new devotees to knowing about Srila Prabhupada. Because if we do not know Srila Prabhupada, if we do not know his teachings, if we do not understand his mission, then how do we understand ISKCON and practice it as he expects us to practice? And so if you think that it's very important that we do something like that, if you can take it to the GBC, they make it like part of our etiquette, part of our training, that all ISKCON temples, There is a program that the neophyte devotees, they get to study Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. Like Sasarup Maharaj so kindly gave us Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. You read from Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, and there's so much nectar in there. And when you understand him, then I think, this is my own little understanding, that it makes it a little easier to be in Srila Prabhupada's movement. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I agree. I my god brother, Prabhupada's foremost Sanskrit editor, and who Prabhupada himself called Panditji, Prajumna Prabhu Panditji. He told me there's three elements. He said in Krishna consciousness. Of course, there's so many things, but in this one platform, he said describe three elements. He said we have the deities, we have the Shastra, and we have the pure devotee, the guru, pure devotee guru. He said of those three things, he said the deities, they are passive. Passive means you see the deities, we translate them, we see it through our own mind, our own understanding. We accept the deity. Shastra, the books are the same way. Just like here, if there's a dozen of us here, we can all read the same purport. We're all going to speak about it a little differently. We're all going to understand something differently. We see this. Otherwise, why does everywhere you go on Facebook, everybody's arguing everything? There's not one statement you can make. Somebody will disagree with you and say, no, that's not what I understand. So that's also passive. It's depending on our own mind and intelligence. There's only one active principle. That's the pure devotee. He can tell you, just like me, I went to Mangalartik. I'm supposed to go to Mangalartik. But he's the person that can say, no, this is not your business. Who could say such a thing except for one who understands? He understands the individual. He understands what you need. And he can do that. So the association of pure devotee is essential in Krishna consciousness to make advancement. Otherwise, we're just left to our own devices, our own mind, our own manufacturing. So I think what you say is very important, but even that also needs to be understood, since that talking is also not a live conversation going on, so he can't interact with you at the moment anymore. But I see listening to, watching Prabhupada's lectures, very, very wonderful thing to do, to hear him speak, to hear his sense of urgency, to hear his attachment to Krishna, his love for Krishna. And also I like very much Siddhanta's memory series, which you can see. Reading is nice, hearing audio is nice, but then when you have the video and the audio, very striking. And so many devotees have so many interesting and amazing topics, in their association with Prabhupada. Things just being with Prabhupada for a few minutes. Me again, I was very, very fortunate. I got to be with him for a few years. But I see God brothers and God sisters maybe just saw Prabhupada one time, maybe just saw his face. Prabhupada look at them just for a moment with that transcendental vision, with that pure love vision, and changed their life. It's described in Bhagavatam, I think 11th or 12th canto, that just a smile of the pure devotee can make someone Krishna conscious. That's the potency of purity, of the pure devotee. So Prabhupada, as you say, certainly, I think it's very important that somehow or other, and we say, Prabhupada, what do we say in our ISKCON? He's preeminent Shiksha Guru. So there's no one more important than Prabhupada. We can have many Shiksha Gurus, and we can have our Diksha Guru, and we know Shiksha and Diksha, we say is same. But amongst that, we say Prabhupada's preeminent Shiksha Guru. So there's no one more important for any of us than to understand Prabhupada's mood. That's my, that's my opinion. And it's backed up by Shastra. So I think it's a very solid opinion. I think when I see devotees that are attached to Prabhupada, Prabhupada's instructions and serving Prabhupada, I know they're very nicely grounded in devotional service. When people will read my book, What is the Difficulty? And sometimes they'll tell me I read it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, because they have that attachment to Srila Prabhupada. I think it's very healthy. And when I see that people don't show some type of attachment for them, I think it's a dangerous spot. Because how do we develop our love of Krishna? That's what the spiritual master teaches you. We have to develop love of our spiritual master. He loves Krishna. So like Prabhupada would say, love me, love my dog. And that's what he said. This is position of devotee, just Krishna's dog. And Prabhupada said, I love Krishna, you love me, so you love Krishna. So it's a very easy stepping stone to just try to develop love of Krishna. For me, Krishna is very, very far away. He's not right here. But Prabhupada's right here. He's accessible to all of us. That's why he gave us all these books. So it's important to read the books, to discuss the books with others. But it's important, I think, to understand that person behind those books. And he doesn't give a lot of hint about himself in his books. He only talks about Krishna. So I think it's a very good thing. As you say, I think it's very healthy for us to hear from and maybe develop some attachment to those that you see are very close to Prabhupada. I think it's a very good advantage and a very healthy and almost necessary thing for many. Other in our own direction. We don't understand what Prabhupada wants.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much, Prabhu. I have a question also, Prabhu. Thank you for the explanation. My question is that, is it possible for somebody to love Srila Prabhupada and not be in ISKCON?
Well, if you love Prabhupada, you are in ISKCON. Prabhupada said, I am ISKCON. He said, ISKCON is my body. He said he's non-different from ISKCON. So, we see ISKCON in many different ways, perhaps. We can see the organization, we say brick and mortar, that's ISKCON. ISKCON, not just a bunch of buildings. ISKCON is that. It's Prabhupada. It's the association with Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, you can associate with 2 or 200. The idea is, he said, where 2 people are together associating in Krishna consciousness, that's also ISKCON. So Prabhupada didn't get, when devotees would try to make that distinction, these people are living outside, they don't come to the temple, Prabhupada would never say, oh, then they have no chance of being Krishna conscious. He would say it's much easier if you're situated in a temple, taking association in a temple, association of others who are practicing. This is important. Association is very important, but the association has to be with someone who is eager, someone is enthusiastic in Krishna consciousness and knows what the process is. It's not like it has to be very big assembly of people. That's also nice. And we see that when you have a very large assembly and everyone is like-minded. Over the years, I've been to many festivals in the Ukraine. The first one I went to was 2001, literally 20 years ago. There were 800 devotees there. You know who one of the devotees were? Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He was one of them. He was there dancing, chanting. others, of course, who invited me, Naranjan Maharaj, myself. And Naranjan Maharaj wanted me to come to this festival. So at the festival, they had seminars. So even then, the 800, they had 3 time slots. And in each time slot, there were 3 different programs, 3 classes, 3 different classes. So total of 9 classes. And for me, he didn't give me one of those. He gave me the whole evening class because he wanted them to hear about Prabhupada. And from that moment, I had very great respect for him because he could understand the importance, because he also enjoyed hearing about Prabhupada. And he would attend all the classes himself. So when I see that, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was the same. He would come to hear about Prabhupada, even though I was just this Grahasta guy, Srutakirti, but he was talking about Prabhupada. So when I see that, then I, at least in my understanding, is this person's in a safe situation because they love Prabhupada. Because we don't know anything about Krishna except for what Prabhupada has given us. So it's very good attachment. We become attached to Prabhupada, is a very safe place to be.
So thank you very much, Prabhu. We really appreciate your time with us, and we wish to have more of this kind of association because we're never tired of hearing about Srila Prabhupada from you. So
But I don't get tired of speaking about him because when we do this, Prabhupada is also present. Huh? This is spiritual realm. When you're discussing pastimes about Krishna and his pure devotees, they're there. When you're on Harinam Sankirtan, Lord Chaitanya, it's just a question of realization. So it's also for me, I get to associate with Prabhupada in this way through his devotees, through his followers. So I appreciate you all very much.
We really appreciate you, Prabhu. Thank you.
And we can do this. We can do this every month or so. If you like, we can meet again. And
yes, Prabhu. Yes, every month we always try to see and see how we can bring you on the platform, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu. We always get in touch with you through
in the meantime. Yes, in the meantime, you take care of each other very nicely, and Prabhupada will be pleased. And if Prabhupada's pleased, then all success will be there.
Yes, Prabhu. It's Hare Prabhu. You want to say something?
Yes, yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
Srutakirti Prabhu, thank you so much. I have a follow-up question to Kavi Kanapura's question, which you answered, about if someone claims he loves Srila Prabhupada, if such a person can leave ISKCON. And your explanation was Srila Prabhupada is the body of ISKCON.
Hmm.
I accept that. I appreciate that. But I once had a very lengthy argument with one senior devotee who is now a sannyasi to a different organization. He used to be with ISKCON as Hare Krishna movement, and he was arguing with me that he is still in ISKCON. And I said to him, he's no more in ISKCON. And so he said he is in ISKCON and that I do not understand that Srila Prabhupada did not establish ISKCON.
Hmm.
So it became a very lengthy argument that no, Srila Prabhupada is the founder of ISKCON. ISKCON was founded in New York. That is where it was incorporated.
Yeah.
And so he was saying that ISKCON was started by Lord Chaitanya. I said, no, he started the Harinam Sankirtan, but
Yes.
an organization called ISKCON was established by Srila Prabhupada. So that being said, if someone claims he loves Srila Prabhupada and simply by loving Srila Prabhupada, he is an ISKCON. And oftentimes, lots of these devotees, when they leave ISKCON, they actually become inimical to ISKCON.
Hmm.
And Srila Prabhupada's disciples, most of them do not accept that anybody should become a Diksha guru. You know all this nonsense they
Hmm.
wander around. So I would like you to uh, throw more light on if someone claims he loves Srila Prabhupada and he is no more within ISKCON, which is a house that Srila Prabhupada built for all of us, where Srila Prabhupada himself said, your love for me will be demonstrated on how you love each other and working harmoniously in the organization. I would like you to throw more light on that. Thank you very much.
Hmm. Okay. We have a few minutes today, but this is a big topic we could talk about again as well. But yes, I myself, this is, like I said it early on, how Prabhupada told the one GBC, you struggle for Krishna. Huh? This is the struggle sometimes in Prabhupada's society. He Prabhupada used the example about England. What is it, England? How whatever it may be, you love. You love the mother. Established the Harinam Society, but Prabhupada specifically set up International Society for Krishna Consciousness. As I said in the beginning, Narada Muni was coming to Prabhupada's kirtans to see these devotees that Prabhupada was making in his society. So it is most important. I would never, and to be in a society like this, to be in temples, I've been in temples all over the world. I've been in Hawaii temples in the mainland US. I've seen the temples last year in Africa, South Africa, Mombasa, Nairobi. You stay in any temple long enough, you're going to have sometimes some disagreements with the management, with God brothers, God sisters, whatever it may be. Those things are there. But Prabhupada was somehow or other, we work together because this is how you can have strength. We have strength in numbers. We always know the example, the bundle of sticks. We go off on our own. Personally, I find it impossible to understand how even those who had Prabhupada's personal association could leave to some other society, some other Krishna society. I I I mentioned those festivals in Ukraine. One festival, somebody asked me, and I said I will remain here in Prabhupada's society. I said I don't care if I go to heaven or hell. I said I'll do anything I can to remain within Prabhupada's ISKCON. So as I said, Prabhupada said ISKCON used in certain ways, but he certainly has a structure which he has created with his GBC, the GBC body, his disciples, the GBC and those seniors. He said he wanted them to know how to do things just like him. See, that's why the personal association I find is very important, because sometimes when I see people, and you can read the books, but when it came to dealing with things personally, Prabhupada knew what to do, and he knew how to manage everyone. He knew how to encourage everyone. And that's a great art, huh, as a devotee to be able to do. And, and, and that's why people have gone this way and that way. It's wonderful they're practicing Krishna consciousness. 30 years ago, I told God brothers when they talked about going to, this group, Narayans, and I said, if your service is helping pushing on Prabhupada's mission, then I said, that's very nice. But if you're not, I said, then what's the use? So that's the real test. And like you say, you look at these people, and is all I've ever seen, all I ever seen is they try to skim off of ISKCON, huh? You know, they come to ISKCON temples, they try to pluck new people from ISKCON, you know, criticize, which we know that right off the bat, that's, you know, criticizing devotees. What to speak of devotees who are working 24 hours a day trying to do something. So it is, you know, they, as I say, speak out of both sides of the mouth. You know, they say one thing, but actions speak louder than words. So what I see, if someone is following nicely very Prabhupada, doing what he wants, then that's fine. But I haven't seen that, you know. They, you know, somehow or other, they always put in these little things, you know, Prabhupada taught the ABCs and, you know, now we're on the XYZs, all these things. But I would advise you not to waste your time with these people in arguments, because it's just a waste of your own energy. And, you know, I see time and time again talking with different people, and he said, well, they said this about Prabhupada. I said, well, why are you even listening? Because all it can do actually is contaminate you. And if you're not in a very high level, it can create doubts in your own mind. That's why we don't want to hear. That's why we don't want to hear from Mayavad philosophy unless one's very firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. These things can be, you know, very hurtful and even damaging to our own Krishna, our own creepers. So, you know, you better we spend our time with those who are innocent and those who are positive and can benefit from our association. I understand you're doing it. I'm not criticizing or objecting, but I'm saying you tried, but you just, you know, got to let it go. Prabhupada didn't, you know, when people would ask Prabhupada about this person, that person, he would say, I don't know, you know, I don't know I don't know their philosophy. I don't know what they're doing. He would just spend his time giving. So that, I think that's the best thing. You know, here, Hawaii, you know, I lived in Hawaii the last 5 years before coming here. Hawaii was the very first place that had schism. What do you call, it was, you know, Siddha Swarup and his group. He was one of the very first defectors. Hawaii's got everybody over there on the different islands. They got the, you know, Chaitanya Saraswati Mat, the Narayan group, the Ritvik group, this group, that group. And what to do? We stick with my understanding is we just hang on tight to Prabhupada's lotus feet and let him worry about the rest, you know? You just serve him nicely. He spread Krishna consciousness all around the world. Nobody else has done it. No one else can do it now. He already did it, you know? So he's the empowered personality. And if these people are so fallen, so narrow-minded, and so offensive that they can't see that, then that's their own demise, you know. But I avoid. I don't even bother talking to these people anymore. I had somebody come up to me one day, years ago. It was a Ritvik, and he said, "Oh, your book is very nice. Your stories about Prabhupada, but why did you bother adding anything at the end? Why did you have anything to say at the end?" I just looked at him and, you know, so what to do? But these things are there, you know. Envy runs very deep in the living. You know, we're here because we're envious of Krishna. So to give up that envy and just become a humble servant is it's not an easy thing. Not an easy thing for us. Yeah. But I can take your leave now if it's okay. So remain a very strong warrior for Prabhupada and his mission, and you'll have all his power, all his blessings, and at the end of this life, you'll have all success now and in the future. You don't you worry. Yeah.
Please let us unmute ourselves and let us chant one Hare Krishna to appreciate Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Come, bring it. Baby, bring it. Hey, Empa.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare